Hey everyone, welcome back to Heritage Homestead. My name is Natalie and I am so grateful you're here. I love summer, and part of the reason is because it is berry season. And right now it's blackberry season. So today I thought, since we have picked our hearts out since all the month of June and most of July, now it is time to use the remainder for jamming. So that is my particular favorite jam. I don't know about you. I love strawberry jam, but I really love blackberry. So it uses three ingredients, and I wanted to share that with you because I think it's important that people understand that when you go and buy jam from the store, it is loaded with artificial colors and flavors and probably has a really high amount of sugar, if not all of the other ingredients like corn syrup or other things that sometimes we can't even pronounce. So, if you really don't prefer that to feed your family, that this recipe is going to be for you, and I cannot wait to share that with you. Tonight, actually, we have somewhere to be. And so we got out early this morning and picked another gallon. And throughout this week, we've actually had at least a half a gallon, three quarters of a gallon, to all the way to a gallon and a half every single day. So this is the very last day of July, and they are coming in strong. Okay, before we start cooking our berries down, I want to show you what I use for pectin. I don't know if you can see that. It's called Pomona's Pectin. I've actually mentioned this in other jam videos before, but you can buy it in that box, but it's a little more expensive to do it that way. I buy mine in bulk, and that just seems to be a cheaper way for me to do it. And I just keep it in 2 Ziploc bags, and it has lasted me several years. So don't worry about it going bad. It literally is a powder, and it looks just like that. There's a little packet in there usually that says calcium water in it. And you want to go ahead and make that first, follow the directions. And I actually have labeled mine and I date it because this will last in the fridge several months, maybe up to a year. So you can reuse this with the next jam. So I'll start out with like strawberry jam, and then I freeze my blueberries. So the blackberry jam, and then I'll do peach jam. Trying to think, we do apple butter. So there's all kinds of things I use this for all year round. So I'll make a big batch of this calcium water. Again, that comes in the Pomona's packaging, so you don't have to worry about it. There's directions in there to follow. And I just make up a big jar of this, and I use it all season long until I'm done making jam. Now, the reason why we want to use calcium water in this particular recipe with this pectin is because this is what allows us to make jam with the lower amount of sugar instead of a high amount, or honey or maple syrup. Because if you use the other pectin, I'm not sure what other brands are out there, but the store-bought brands, I'm not sure that you could even use honey or maple syrup in that, or even a lower sugar content level. So this is why I love this brand so much. Don't be overwhelmed by the directions. They can be a little confusing, but once you start getting into the flow of it and find your routine, it'll be pretty simple. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is get your jars, and you need to put them in hot soapy water and just make sure they're clean. And then I rinse them off in cold, and I just lay them on a towel on the counter. This is a really good time to check the rims of your jars and make sure that there's no nicks or breaks in your jars, because if they do, you're going to have to discard them because your jam will not seal. Okay, so I have 12 cups of blackberries here. I will link the recipe below so you don't have to worry about remembering or writing anything down, I will have that for you below. So I've measured my berries. As you can see, the juice has really come out of that nicely. And it's time to put the calcium water in and turn it on. Okay, so while the berries are cooking, I wanted to show you what the pectin looked like. It's just a little powder. And I've already pre-measured my sugar and pectin, and all I'm going to do is make sure it's incorporated because you don't want lumpy jam. I don't know if you've ever bought the store-bought pectin. That also ends up being the same way. You have to kind of incorporate it in your sugar. Now, if you use honey or maple syrup, this is actually the same way. So you pour your honey or maple syrup and you measure it all out based on Pomona's recipe. And then you take your pectin and you stir it really, really good in the actual honey. And so you want that incorporated really well, because when you go to pour the honey into the hot the hot berries, it will get lumpy on you if it's not incorporated well. So this process really is important to do before, so you don't get in a rush and mess this part up, because I have done that. Okay, so as those were boiling, I'm going to go ahead and keep stirring them so they don't scorch the bottom of the pan. Nobody wants burnt jam. If you are a beginner canner, I love applesauce and jam for beginners because that's where I started. It just seemed less overwhelming. It was super easy and I didn't mess up too bad. So I did learn some mistakes from the things that I didn't do right. And so you just, mistakes are your best teacher, really. Experiences too. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, make some mistakes. Hopefully that relieves a burden that maybe someone had questions about. And if you are to the T follower when it comes to everything, that's okay too. Do what makes your kitchen run and your family run the best and gives you the most peace. Now, unlike other jams that you're going to make just with berries and sugar, this does not have to boil as long. All you need to do is bring it to a boil and add your sugar pectin mixture into it. Now, if you're omitting the pectin, this does need to be boiled quite a long time because you are drawing the natural pectin out and it's getting, the water is evaporating and it's getting super thick. So that's that process, and you can do that too. But I just wanted to note that difference in case you had that question. So this is where it gets fun for me. So this is the chemistry part where I'm gonna pour the sugar and pectin in, and I do this slow because I don't want any clumpy jam. This is how you learn, right? This is how I learned, and I definitely made clumpy jam at some point in the beginning. So you see how I don't know if you can see that, I'm sorry. But I'm just slowly pouring that in, and I'm going to stir it a little bit at a time. And your rolling boil will actually slow down because you're adding something that is probably room temperature. So I'm going to keep going. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And I'm just making sure that it's all stirred in before I give it another big scoop. You just don't want to overwhelm your pot of jam. And really the only thing that could go wrong is clumpy jam. You really can't mess this up too bad. Okay, last little bit. I'm going to stir the rest of that in. That looks so good. So what you want to do now is just bring that up to a rolling boil for another couple of minutes, but just go ahead and continuously stir because you don't want the bottom burnt. Okay, we'll see you back here when it starts boiling. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but it is looking really, really thick, and we are about ready to turn the heat off and then get our ladle and jars and funnel and get these in with the lids and rings on. Okay, this looks really good. I think we're about 30 seconds, a minute away from ladling this into our jars. So I'm just going to keep on stirring until I feel like it's exactly where it needs to be. And that part just takes practice. So really what you're looking for is, as I gather the jam around the sides, you can just tell it's super thick. So, yep, I think it's done. Okay, I'm gonna leave this sit, and I'm gonna go grab all of my stuff, which is on this counter. No big deal, I've already had it washed and ready to go, which is what you wanna make sure that you do before you start any of this process. Okay, my pot of jam is actually off, but I see that it's still boiling, so that's perfect. So I've got my ladle and my funnel, and I've got my clean jars. So all I'm going to do is ladle this straight into the jar. And you want about a 1/2 inch for jam, 1/2 inch headspace. In my opinion, if you do an inch on these smaller jars, it's just a little bit too much, and there's too much air in the jar for it to seal. Doesn't mean it won't, but that's just been my experience. The next thing that you want to do, typically I will put this in vinegar water, but today I'm just going to use a dry cloth. But I wipe the rim. Place your lid and your ring on. It's not going on. There it is. And you want it finger tight. Now, if you do it too tight, that's not a good idea. Just don't do that. Sometimes those don't seal if you get them too tight. So don't need a strong-armed man for this job. Ooh, that jar is hot. Okay, so there's 2. And I like to hot pack these, which is probably what I'm going to do. So if something didn't seal, and I will leave those for 12 to 18 hours overnight on the counter undisturbed. And if something didn't seal, I will either water bath those for 20 minutes in my area, or I will go ahead and just put that one in the fridge. Because if there's only one that didn't seal after I hot pack them, it's really not worth it to me to get the water bath canner out, fill up a big pot of water for one little jar. So that's my tidbit on that one. For hot packing, I really like to keep this as close to boiling as possible, because that's what's going to get that nice hot packing seal. And again, when you hot pack and leave only a 1/2 inch headspace, it works really well because there is less oxygen or air that needs to be removed. So it's actually very helpful. Ask me how I know. Oh, if I could write a book about all the mistakes, right? You would get bored after a while. But it would probably make you feel better, because I have made plenty of canning mistakes, but that is also how I learn, and I don't mind that. So there you go. And there's the fifth one. Coming along quite nicely here. Once I get to the bottom of my pot, I really want to make sure that if I only have maybe a half a jar left, that's okay. I'll just stick that and use it for breakfast the next day. But if I have close to an entire jar, I will make sure that I scrape with a spatula to get all of the jam removed out of the pot so I can fill another jar. Because there's something satisfactory about putting a bunch of food away from your summer goods into your pantry for the winter. It means for me that I have to grocery shop less and spend a lot less at the grocery store. I'm going to go ahead and jar the rest of these, and I will come back and show you how many half pints we made out of 12 cups of blackberries. Okay, so we have successfully jammed 10 pints, I believe. So for every 12 cups of blackberries, that's how much that made. And I'm going to stick this in the fridge because it's only about 3/4 full. So we'll have that on toast or something like that. So again, this is hot packed, and I'm going to leave this on the counter. And if 1 or 2 didn't seal, we might just go ahead and eat those. I've not had a whole lot that doesn't seal. But if that's the case and I don't want to put it in the refrigerator and I want to put it for long-term storage, I will go ahead and water bath those the next day. It's perfectly fine. It has enough sugar in it. It can last overnight and not seal and still be safe to eat. So if that does happen and I decide that I'm going to water bath, what you're going to do is look up your recommendations for the amount of time that you need to boil either pints or quarts, whatever you choose. To jar your food in. And at sea level, I think it is only about 10 minutes. And I believe, don't quote me on this, please look up this information, but I think that for every 1,000 feet of elevation, you need to go up, I believe, 5 minutes of cooking time or water bath time. But again, look up those recommendations. If that happens tomorrow, I will be water bathing these for about 20 minutes. And once you do water bath those and they are done for the 15 or 20 minutes or whatever your elevation time is, go ahead and shut the water bath off and leave it rest for 5 minutes with the lid off just to kind of slow things down and get it all calm. And then after like 5 minutes of just rest time, I go ahead and just start taking them out one at a time with my jar lifter. And I place a tea towel on my countertop and I just put them in a row. You've probably seen that in other videos or on social media like Instagram or Facebook. You'll see how I set that on my counter, and I just leave that set for 12 to 18 hours overnight. You also want to make sure that once your jars have been sitting, resting, and cooled, you want to label them. And what I would do with these is I would put blackberry jam and the month and the year. And that's really important because when you go back and find a jar that's like, you know, been in the very back of the shelf and you didn't even realize that someone missed that and moved some stuff over, you want to make sure that you know what the date is, because you don't want to eat something that's, you know, been sitting around for 6 or 7 years. But that has never happened to me, and I've accidentally moved things to the very back, and I've been so grateful that I have labeled the date and what it is, because you just never know. So there's a lot of people that come and go out of our house, and everybody's always in the kitchen helping cooking or going back to the pantry and getting you know, what side dish they want. And so it just keeps everybody accountable and on the same page. Hopefully I didn't forget to say that once these are open, they last about 3 weeks in the refrigerator, and you probably need to consume it before then. Well, thank you so much for just joining me, and I'm grateful that you're here. And if you have any questions, I'd love to help you along on your journey, whether it's canning, organizing, motherhood, homesteading, farming, anything that I am able to help you with. I'm very grateful that you've asked. So hopefully today was encouraging to you and you are confident enough that you can start jamming or doing something simple in the kitchen, such as long food storage. It is something that I absolutely love to do. And when I first got married, I dove in this area head first, and I have not looked back. So hopefully I've inspired you just a little bit. And if you've liked this video, thumbs it up, subscribe so you know and are notified for our next video, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.